Just like Moses, remember, they wanted to kill him while he was a baby. And the same was with Jesus.
Welcome to the Good Book Club, guys. Today we're doing Exodus number 13.
Yep.
And what does it entail?
This takes place right after the last plague, or after Passover, and it starts with the consecration of the firstborn.
Okay.
You said something before we started recording about firstborn and secondborn sons.
Oh, yes. So, it's a one-liner note that I took from that whole chapter, which is the first son gets justice and the second gets mercy. And the mercy is to be able to live still. Well, the firstborn died.
Firstborn died.
Yeah.
If you think about like Jesus, firstborn son of God, he died.
He died.
He brought justice.
And anything that's for certain in life is death. And
that's
faith.
Not true.
And faith.
God is certain.
He's certain, yeah, but you need faith. So there's two things.
And the other thing that's also certain is changing circumstances. Change is constant. It's also constant. Changing.
Okay, we're going into a tangent.
The only thing constant in life is change.
Yeah. But other than that, God wanted them to consecrate the firstborn because this was to happen in the promised land. But it links really well with the story of Jesus, where just like Moses, remember, they wanted to kill him while he was a baby. And the same was with Jesus, except that was the Romans. They wanted to kill all the babies 2 years and younger, which was with spears or swords.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. Stab, slice.
And it was actually prophesied in Jeremiah or Isaiah, one of those two prophets that talks about that prophecy. And Joseph, who was betrothed to Mary, he had an angel talk to him and say, flee to Egypt for your own safety. And then sometime later, angel said...
Parallel.
Yes, that's the parallel I'm getting to.
Okay.
So the cool thing is, later, the angel told Joseph, the people who were trying to kill Jesus are now dead, you can go back.
Yes.
And then, in a way, Israel is seen as God's firstborn son who was taken out of Egypt.
Is that why the Israelites are the chosen people?
Yes. He chose them and he wanted them to be a priest of nations.
So was Adam and Eve Israelites technically?
Technically, yes, because they're part of Jesus' bloodline. Because from Adam came Abraham, David, Jesus, and so on. And what's cool is that Israel is seen as God's firstborn son. They were taken out of Egypt. And then many years later, Jesus is the firstborn son of God, and he was also taken out of Egypt. So I really like the parallel between Moses and Jesus.
That's really cool.
Cool, huh?
Yeah.
So, and there is another part in Matthew that says, out of Egypt I called my son, and I got confused about it, but now I realize the connection is that which I just explained, which is quite cool. And from here, interesting part is that God took them on the longer route. Why was that?
The longer route so they can learn their lessons. No, it's actually just to prevent some war, death, and well, there was still death involved, but it's not death from the enemy's hands. So, yeah, I think that's the reason why.
The reason why is because if they had taken the quicker route, the shortcut, they would have gone into enemy territory and there would have been war, and they could have been afraid and run back to Egypt. So God took the longer way to avoid that, and one could say that was to prepare them for the war that was going to happen in the Promised Land, which is in Joshua.
Sure, and to happen in the Promised Land, but also to get out of their victim mentality mindset of being slaves.
Yes,
as well. So.
Because funny enough, in chapter 14, they talked about, couldn't we just stay back in Egypt? And that's
you could have, but you chose not to.
And that's the conflict we will get to in the next chapter. But God was thinking ahead. He was going ahead of them by not taking the easier route, because they would have come across war.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Other than that, it's actually quite a short chapter. It's only 22 verses.
Oh, that's nice.
The other thing that I really find cool is the pillar of cloud, which was during the day, and the pillar of fire, which was during the night. What does that mean again?
The pillar, like tornadoes.
No, not a tornado.
Oh, okay. Okay, what does it mean?
So that was a physical manifestation of God's presence.
All right.
The fire was obviously at night,
Yeah.
and then the cloud was during the day. And the Action Bible portrays it pretty cool. How you see this thing, I imagine it floating with them, like it's right in front of them, and he's moving with them.
So it's like guiding them, providing shade in the day in the desert, and then warmth in the evening.
Exactly, because the desert can get really cold at night.
Yeah,
I know from personal experience.
So you were in the desert.
Yeah, I camped in a desert.
What, in the Sahara?
In Saudi Arabia.
Saudi. Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
It can get really cold. As hot as it gets, that's how cold it gets.
Sure.
So that was pretty cool of how he went ahead of them. And I believe it's either in this chapter or the next one where he talks about it's the army of Israel that he led out. They were led out like an army because they were at least 600,000 people. At least. It's said here in this note that it could have been 2 million. That's a lot of people. Right?
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of ants when you look from above.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, some Egyptians also believed in the Lord. So there were some Egyptians that traveled with them.
Yes.
So it wasn't just Israelites, it was also Egyptians.
But the majority was Israelites.
Obviously, yes. That's basically chapter 13. It reminds us of God's protection and guidance.
So that is the summary of it.
That's literally it. It's a very short and sweet chapter. And chapter 14 is pretty cool.